Hello, BookTube. I thought we'd do a little bit of mail on this misty, rainy day, this misty, warm day, type of day where even if it's not actually raining when you're contemplating a dog walk with a rain-phobic little dog, you feel like you could get caught in the rain at any minute. That hasn't happened to us so far today. We've been just lucky, that's all. And it is still not bitingly cold, which is great. There's a system of fronts coming through here. This comparatively warm weather is going to last for a few more days and produce, I think, another round of rain that will be much stronger than this one. But then we're going to get a little bit of a cold blast again. I'm not looking forward to that. I grew quickly accustomed to weather that is not trying to kill me. But we haven't done mail in a while, and that has not been from want of trying. I have tried. I have filmed a couple of attempts at mail hauls where, once again, a shadow of 2024, the books themselves were so maddening that I realized that I had been on rants for 45 minutes about one book, and that you can't upload a thing like that. So we're going to try this again. I've decided that one of the ways to mitigate the risk of that is to do just a couple of packages. But we have other things too, like, for instance, one of you sent me a postcard. This. A Penguin Classic postcard. Which I will gladly use as a bookmark in my favorite copy of Pride and Prejudice. Wonderful. Also a periodical, the greatest English language literary review of them all, the London Times Literary Supplement, the TLS. I worry that I say that, and I worry that I'm selling it maybe to people who don't read the books that are reflected in here. And there's no worse waste of your book review reading time than to read a really good journal that just isn't for you. The TLS in large part reviews scholarly works, sometimes in translation, sometimes not in translation. And if you don't read those things, then, I believe my characterization is correct, that it is, by a pretty wide margin, the best literary journal, review journal in the English-speaking world. But take that with a grain of salt. It can be the greatest and still not be your cup of tea. But I love to go through it, and I was very happy to see, who is it? Caustica Bratatan. Okay, I don't believe that's your real name, but this person, whoever they are, I'm assuming it's an Irish name, reviewed there's a new English language translation of Volker Leppen's biography of Francis of Assisi that I quite liked. I will have to go back to that book. I should write about it, actually. I quite liked it, and the review, it's a whole page with a little insert of an ad. There's a little ad insert in the middle of the page for one of the latest editions in the Penguin Classics Modern Classics line, My Search for Warren Harding. Couple of you out there, maybe who watch this channel, maybe who don't, a couple of people from a long time ago, long before there was an internet, long before there was a booktube, will remember a certain person, a certain crazy old man, pressing this book upon them in a crappy old paperback that once existed. Very rare siren these days. Neighborhood's completely empty. Completely quiet all the time. I'm glad they show up for a video now and then. But last night, the last night of the evening, Frida and I could eat, like I've said a few times, we could easily have done the whole walk in the middle of the street. There was no traffic at all, no people, no one anywhere around. But anyway, if that was one siren, there might be others, because there might be a problem. Now there are genuine emergencies. Once upon a time, we heard sirens every 5 seconds, and obviously that is not a genuine emergency. The world's not ending like in an apocalyptic movie. But anyway, that crazy old coot was recommending an old mass-market paperback of My Search for Warren Harding and putting it in the bags of books that he used to give as gifts to young readers that he knew. And a lot of them would say, well, okay, you're giving me Pride and Prejudice, you're giving me, Prescott's history of Mexico or whatnot. You're giving me all sorts of stuff that I recognize. You're giving me your favorite translation of War and Peace. But what's this thing? What's this novel? And now it's a Penguin Classic, so Steve feels validated. But this review of the Francis of Assisi book has a wonderful closing paragraph. Complex, multi-layered, and ambitious as this book is, we are left with the impression, as we finish reading it, that we still don't quite get Francis. But perhaps that's because we prefer not to. What his followers love about him may be precisely his fundamental ambiguity. Quote, the dividing line between heterodoxy and sanctity, as the author of the book writes, was just as small as that between holiness and madness. Francis walked the tightrope in both instances and could easily have fallen on either side at any moment. Then the review goes on. We have been watching this tightrope performance for 8 centuries now, and it seems unlikely we will ever tire of it. I love that. I think that's a really good way to end a review, although I don't agree with it. I think if you read even a one-paragraph biography of Francis of Assisi, much less this biography, which is as sympathetic as anything I've ever read, you won't have any doubt which side of that tightrope he falls on. He was as nutty as a March hare. but I'm very nice to see, and of course this is an instance I often talk about opening a commercial book review and seeing someone reviewing a book that I've either reviewed or have thought about reviewing. When you see someone reviewing a book that you've reviewed, I get butterflies because I worry, oh my, all right, my review's out there. It's for a very small readership. You can find it. It's free, but it's for a very small readership, but it is out there. I did put it into the world. I can't reclaim it. And what if the person who's reviewing it here notices all sorts of things that I didn't? Maybe even some really important, really damning things, like a fundamental mistake that the author of the book makes that I missed. That hasn't happened yet, thankfully. But I always get a little queasy. It's a different kind of feeling I get when I read a review of a book that I have considered reviewing and haven't done it yet. Then I start to feel, an urge to go and do it, an urge to go and put my 2 cents in. Since my review would be shorter and very different from that one. But anyway, that was a postcard and a periodical. Now we'll do a couple of packages, and we will hope for the best. I know that we had a coping mechanism for problem mail firmly in place last year, which was the phrase "food for thought," where we all agreed that rather than deprive you of mail hauls, if I got something that was completely gaslighting, just telling me that reality is different from what it observably is, that I would stop reading, stop considering the book, put it aside, say "food for thought," and move on. I know we did that, but often they catch me by surprise. So my guard is up now. We're gonna see if what we can do here. Okay, this is just an unbound galley here. This is not. This is. Someone just put this together. Just put the pages together for me. Oh no. Okay. This is Murderland by Carolyn Fraser. Subtitle: Crime and Bloodlust in the Time of Serial Killers. This is oh no, it has a puff sheet. How wonderful. Okay, great. So we can just put this thing aside. This is just nothing. This is what the book is going to look like. That right there. And that, of course, is Ted Bundy on the cover. It's a book about serial killers. It was bound to happen. Those of you who have not followed the lore of this channel, maybe you're brand new. I've been hearing via email from a very encouragingly large number of people who are brand new to this channel, just found it, and yet who have become comfortable with the idea of emailing this total stranger. I love that. And most of the people who've been doing that, I leave my email on every video. You are perfectly welcome to email me about anything. It doesn't have to be about the contents of a video. It can be about your life. You're perfectly welcome to do that. I'm happy. I'm a lonely old shut-in. I'm perfectly happy to make new friends. And most of the people who have been emailing me recently seem very cognizant of the fact that I might not respond. I get a lot of email. I might not respond immediately. That if you write 5,000 words in your email, I'm probably not going to respond at all. Most people seem to be veering away from fact boy emails, which is a great benefit to me. Thank you very much. I cannot stand fact boy stuff. I've never liked it even before it was an email. I've never liked it in person, where people walk up to me and just punch a number combination. Okay, I've put in my 75 cents, and I want everything you have to spit out on Baudelaire or Joan of Arc. I used to say in ye olden days, why don't you haul out your Funkin' Wagnalls? Some of you who are very old will get that reference. Nowadays, I could easily say, why don't you tap up Wikipedia on your smartwatch? You don't need me to do that. To do an overview you can easily do yourself. Most people that have been emailing me get that very much. But some of those new people might not know that I spent a good chunk of last year researching down deep in the weeds, police reports. Original private interviews with survivors and with policemen. That kind of deep in the weeds. Serial killers. A great deal of research on serial killers. It started to center on gay serial killers in America. It started to do that. It didn't quite get that far, and it didn't go any further. It could have. We could have moved from serial killers to family annihilators, which would almost have annihilated me. And it was all for a patron, a private patron contacted me through an editor. It was paid. It was, in a macabre way, fun. It was certainly interesting, but frustrating. As I said on this channel during the times when I was doing that research, frustrating because there's so little really good writing on the subject. Most of it is predictable sensationalism. So let's see what this is. Of course, this is just a pub sheet, keep in mind. This is not the book. I'm excited to be in touch regarding the captivating, propulsive new work of journalistic nonfiction from Carolyn Fraser, who won the Pulitzer Prize. Why do I know the name Carolyn Fraser? That name sounds familiar to me. What did she win the Pulitzer Prize for? Oh, okay. She won it for Prairie Fires. A great book. A great biography. Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, she wrote Prairie Fires. I cannot recommend Prairie Fires high enough. Even if you don't read nonfiction, I can't recommend it strongly enough. Okay, this is a history of serial killers in the Pacific Northwest. So that's her focus. When it comes to serial killers, you almost do need a focus, although a massive Anatomy of Melancholy style, gigantic, comprehensive book on all serial killers without a special focus is possible. It'd be a frightening amount of work. But it's been done for other subjects by a single author in a single lifetime. Lives of the poets, lives of the novelists, the history of the novel, the history of war. These have been done. Okay, so this centers on the Pacific Northwest, and immediately, thanks to the research that I did, I'm thinking of a dozen names of people, of serial killers that she could be talking about. So let's see what she has to say. What is the Pacific Northwest best known for? Bigfoot. I hope the pub sheet goes on to say that. Lumber, aircraft, tech, Starbucks, and serial killers. And Bigfoot. And Bigfoot. Sasquatch. As Fraser maps the lives and crimes of notorious serial killers such as Ted Bundy, the Green River Killer, the Night Stalker, even Charles Manson, she begins to uncover a deeper mystery and ultimately a damning indictment of American culture, violence, capitalism, and environmental destruction. Okay, all right, but okay. The Night Stalker, sure. Green River Killer, maybe because of opportunity, but Ted Bundy? I mean, Charles Manson, sure, nuts, from the beginning, from the cradle. Everyone noticed it. But not Ted Bundy. That's one of the things I've learned about serial killers is that you cannot hide from them. You can if you want to, but it will be fraudulent. You cannot hide from them in any of things like American culture, violence, capitalism, environmental destruction. They pose more fundamental questions than that. You can hide from them behind those things, but that's what you're doing. Anyway, sorry, oh my God. I'm sorry, I apologize to Carolyn Fraser if she ever sees this video. I am primed on this subject, so I'm not letting you get a word in edgewise. Let's read a little more. Fraser is a Seattle native who wrote a great book. I really cannot recommend Prairie Fires high enough. And I think it might be a book that Hannah of Hannah's Books and I agree on, which I know means a lot to you. Fraser grew up in eerie proximity to some of the most notorious serial killers and did extensive research on environmentalism, geography, and regional history to answer the questions: is it coincidence, chance, the weather, or a much larger, complex pattern of societal factors and environmental destruction that have sickened millions, warped developing minds, and cultivated a breeding ground for killers? That is evasion. That is simply evasion. If you study enough of these people, you realize that they are posing more fundamental questions than I'm a victim of society. Some of them, sure. Some of them, sure. I mean, profiles of serial killers always look for emerging psychopathy, a broken home, an abusive home, multiple homes, killing animals, torturing animals as a small child. But it isn't always that, and some of the worst of them don't have any of that. Okay, then the pub sheet goes on to highlight a few bullet points here. Let's see what they are. The shocking and murderous acts of industrial pollution in the 20th century, the history of violence against women, and the connection between the two. God help us. Another bullet point. Let's try for a better one. Why were so many serial killers during one period, the 1970s to the 1990s? Why did violent crime reach unprecedented highs during that era? And why were there so many deviant serial rapists / murderers in the Pacific Northwest? Okay, there are some very good tentative answers to those questions, but I get the feeling she's not going to ask them or get those answers. There are some tentative beginnings, but even when you get to some of those answers, you're still hiding. These weird creatures that crop up among us are not solely driven by social factors. Some of them have every social factor you could want in their favor, and they still do the unthinkable. Sorry, I will wrap this up, I promise. This is not fair to this book. It just happens to be stumbling across a subject that monopolized my attention for the last 9 months. Let's see here. Another bullet point, specific examples of toxic environments in which notorious serial killers grew up, and the lead crime hypothesis, for example, in Bundy's Tacoma, stood as one of the most poisonous lead, copper, and arsenic smelters in the world. What does that mean? You cannot draw that connection. You would have dozens, hundreds, thousands of Bundys. You don't. Let's do another. We want to end a bullet point on a good point here. You're all thinking I'm crazy now, if you didn't already. Let's try another bullet point. Why women are overwhelmingly the audience for and creators of media about true crime. And then I guess we get a quote from the book. It's largely because so many of us have had experiences with sexual harassment or assault or domestic violence. It's also a genre that enables women to confront the perpetrators of the violence. It's much more the second than the first. Women are physically weaker than men. They are therefore the natural target for a budding serial killer. Not all of them. The concentration I had was gay serial killers who were concentrating on young men, including trained Marines sometimes, but also mostly boys and young teenagers. So if you're gay, the equivalent of a woman, someone who is physically less likely to present you with trouble. Although a lot of times in those cases, one notorious one in Florida, the serial killer was not physically imposing at all. John Wayne Gacy was not physically imposing at all. A lot of times it was manipulation. It would have worked either way. It would have worked with either sex. But I believe it's the second part that's floated there, is that women read about this stuff because almost always these stories end with some kind of justice being meted out. It's always delayed. It's always partial. But that's got to be satisfying when you are the sex that is wandering, going home from work late at night, wondering if you're going to get killed and be the 20th victim of some rogue male. Anyway, let's move on here. let's try to move on. Can we skip a bullet point? I want to hit one that I can end on. That's all right. The ethics of true crime. Fraser's motivation to write Murderland was to put these serial killers in a context that might explain why they happen and reveal a pattern of industrial savagery behind the childhood of a lot of these killers. It isn't there. It isn't there. Her focus was not who done it, but why did this happen? Okay, well, on the one hand, I'm not hearing much in those. I'm not going to keep torturing you with bullet points. On the one hand, I'm not hearing much in those bullet points, which, keep in mind, are not the book. I'm not hearing much in those bullet points that convinces me, or that I think is viable at all. But on the other hand, this is a great writer. And that's a pretty big, on the other hand, that pretty much takes care of the two hands. This is a great writer. So just take a seat at this book. I'll be very interested to see the different reaction that it gets in the critical sphere. I'll be very interested to see that. Because it's not just that very little intelligent has been written about serial killers, and finally, no matter what this is, no matter I agree with it or not, I know that it will be sweeping, conscientious, and intelligent. It's not just that not a lot of intelligent stuff has been written on the subject, it's also that it gets trivialized. Even the good stuff does, the minute it appears. And that's maddening. These are people that we're talking about, people who died, mostly in horrible circumstances where they could see their death coming. And yet, the books are cheap sensationalism, and don't even get me started on a lot of the YouTube channels, where the hosts are laughing and joking and even singing. Just horrifying, just horrifyingly. It won't matter. It ultimately won't matter whether or not I ultimately agree with this author on a lot of her points. You certainly cannot point to industrial savagery. for better than 2/3 of these people, you certainly cannot point to that. But maybe she doesn't. I don't know the emphasis. I just read the pub sheet. But I'll be interested in seeing the critical reaction. Prairie Fires got reviewed everywhere. I reviewed it. And everybody took it seriously, and everybody loved it. And I'd be willing to bet the same critics that took that seriously will trivialize this because of the subject matter. We shall see. We shall see. At least I was able to read it without, going around the bend. Unless you say I did. Let's move on to the second. We'll do one more book, and then we'll be done with this mail haul, which managed to be long anyway. Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Great. We go from a follow-up by an author who wrote a great book, so her credit in the Bank of Steve could not be higher, to a debut author, which I love. Anyway, even though they don't have any credit in the Bank of Steve, because the sheet is clear. They don't have any credit, but they don't have any debits either. They're not working off any debts. I love debut novels for that reason. They always frustrate me, almost always. But this is a debut by Alex Foster. This is called Circular Motion. Lovely cover there. Just lovely. A brilliantly imagined literary novel of love, despair, and two people's search for belonging in a world that is literally spinning out of control. The acceleration of Earth's spin begins gradually. At first, days are just a few seconds shorter than normal. Awareness of the mysterious phenomenon hasn't reached Tanner, a young man preoccupied with dreams of escaping his tiny Alaskan hometown. One night, desperate to make his mark on the world, he runs away. He lands an unlikely job at CWC, the global operator of a network of massive aircraft that orbit the Earth at 30,000 feet, revolutionizing global transportation. Now, goods and people can travel anywhere in a little more than an hour. You can visit Paris for an evening and order sushi from Japan. Why you would do that, I have no idea, but you could. Why you would do either of those things, I don't know. But just as Tanner settles into his new life and begins to consider if his feelings for a male colleague might be more than platonic, CWC is shaken by a wave of social unrest and protest. Okay, so we jumped there. The paragraph started with the Earth's rotation speeding up, and then it moved to this weird global fleet of massive planes that's always in operation. I guess they're going to be connected. That unrest sweeps up Winnie, a high school outcast in an era of street protests, wild parties, and online savagery. Winnie falls in with a group of teen activists who blame CWC for the planet's acceleration. Okay, so connected at least on protest level. As days on Earth quicken to 23 hours, then 20, the sun is rising and setting ever faster, causing violent storms and political meltdowns. Tanner and Winnie's stories spiral closer together. They meet cynical executives toiling to forestall the crises they created, and religious zealots for whom the apocalypse can't come soon enough. Lobbyists and lovers, all coping in their own ways, and Victor Bickle, the self-aggrandizing TV scientist whose shameful secret will bind Tanner and Winnie's fates, if they can uncover it before the Earth spins so fast that even gravity might lose its grip. Okay. Whimsical. You can't call it science fiction. I guess you could. You have to call it science fiction because it isn't happening in the real world. I'd hesitate to call it science fiction because, of course, we wouldn't be dealing with social unrest. If the Earth's rotation speed increased so that days went in one single human lifetime to 20 hours from 24, we wouldn't be dealing with religious crises and two characters finding each other. We'd be dealing with apocalyptic, life-ending geophysical results. And the author either knows that, doesn't care, or doesn't know that. So, and a science fiction author would know that. They would research the hell out of that. So more, I guess, actually, I was going to say whimsical, but there is a term for carpetbagging science fiction like this, for science fiction that doesn't want to do the work of world building, but still wants the accolades. And that is speculative fiction. So we'll just call this that. But I want to know about Alex Foster when he's at home. He got his MFA, because of course they all do. Can't have a debut novel without an MFA. From New York University, where he served as fiction editor for the Washington Square Review. Okay. He now edits books at Henry Holt and Metropolitan. Oh, so he works in publishing. His short stories have appeared in Agni, The Common, and Evergreen Review, and elsewhere. Previously, he studied economics at the University of Chicago and conducted research for the U.S. government for the World Bank's Gender Innovation Lab in West Africa. And this is his first book. Okay, I immediately want to know how old this is. Do we have a picture to help Steve on his way? Although that never helps with me, with you people. With dogs, I know to a minute, but no, there's no picture. Well, anyway, a debut novel. Sounds fun. sounds interesting. Oh, and I should give you the date, right? I should give you the date on both of these things. I didn't do that. This comes out in mid-May. Circular Motion comes out in mid-May. So again, if you were pitching the book to an editor, you're in perfect timing, but a lot of editors don't want to review debut fiction. And then Murderland, which you won't have trouble pitching, except I bet you'll be crowded out. This comes out in early June. So plenty of time to pitch it. But again, you'll be dealing with editors and with the author of Prairie Fires. They might line up someone else, or they might get a specialist, what they think is a specialist, to write about serial killing. Or more likely, an editor might, especially for a smaller venue, might say, it's a little bit seedy as a subject, we'll pass. No matter the bona fides of the author, they might do it anyway. So anyway, that is a 2-book mail haul. Serial Killers, sorry to hijack that, and a debut novel to get us back in the swing of mail. These two behave themselves. Maybe that's the secret. Do a couple of books at a time instead of a stack where you're running the risk of your grandparents are horrible people. So anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.